Parenting in America is a significant public health challenge. That's not just my opinion, those are the exact words of Surgeon General Vivek H. Murthy. During the summer of 2024, the United States issued an advisory on the mental health and well-being of parents. It's called Parents Under Pressure. This 36-page document touches on the overwhelming stress that parents face on a daily basis. If you want stats, you'll get your stats, but every page of this document touches on the insane and stressful pressures facing parents on a daily basis. This can't be right. Parenting has always been stressful, right? Sure, but have previous generations had to deal with social media, a youth mental health crisis, the unraveling of our societal fabric, and influencers making us feel like we're doing it all wrong? Raising children is sacred work. It should matter to all of us, and the health and well-being of those who are caring for our children should matter to us as well. To me, fatherhood is a joy. I wouldn't trade a single day for a day before my girls. That said, this stuff is hard. Why is childcare another mortgage, and where'd the dollar menu go? If everything's so expensive, why is everyone so broke, and who's making money here? Parents Under Pressure touches on the current state of parental stress and well-being, the relationship between parental stress and mental health, the impact of parental mental health, and probably most importantly, actions we can take. The reality is society just isn't set up for parents, like at all. For example, I dropped my 2 kids off at school this morning. I've got to pick up one of them around noon, and 2 hours later, I'll be back at the same school to pick up my other daughter. That's 3 visits to the same location within a traditional workday. Now, thankfully, due to consulting and my writing work, my work is relatively flexible, allowing me to be available most times throughout the day. But still, this is only possible because my wife's work is far more consistent than mine. If both of us worked 8 to 5 like a lot of couples do, we'd be in a significantly tougher spot. And there are some people who think that grandparents just need to help out a little bit more. But not everyone has grandparents who are willing or able or present or even alive to compensate for society's poor planning. I love our school, and I will always ride for public schools, but make it make sense. The culture around parenting needs to shift from the workplace to schools to policymakers, ensuring that all parents are afforded paid family leave. All parents. Also, we've got to build better communities. I'm not just talking about online communities because listen, some of these Facebook groups are built on straight up shame. My wife told me about some tea recently in one of our local Facebook mom groups, and whoa, boy, let me tell you, the tea was hot. Parents seek community because more than half of us feel lonely. And listen, I get it. We've got little people yelling at us saying that we cut their sandwiches wrong. I made the perfect grilled cheese the other day. I am talking perfect. Do you think my kids scarfed it down? Of course not, but I did because it was delicious. These tiny scenarios are more than enough to drive even the most put-together parent insane. If we don't have someone to talk to or vent to, the moments that should easily get blown over can drive us into dark and scary places. We need a true, genuine, no membership, no strings attached community where kids can be kids and adults can have adult conversations. There are things your local government can do, such as build more parks with family-friendly activities. And shade. I just gotta throw it out there. More shade structures, preferably more trees. Anyway, please just gotta throw that out there. There are things your employer can do, such as locking employees out of work activities on nights and weekends and vacations, or building out flexible work schedules because, no, Cheryl, this doesn't sound like a conversation that I need to be in your office for. Your community, your church, your school, you name it, they can all do something to genuinely support parents better because the stress is harming not only caregivers, but it's also negatively impacting all of our kids. Do you think your kid is immune from hardships because your family has it all figured out? Unfortunately, that's not how life works. Every single day, we learn about small to unbelievably tragic stories of how choices that other people make will impact our kids' lives. It's in our kids' best interest to uplift the entire community rather than solely focusing on our 4 walls. Look, at the end of our lives, the only thing that will matter is our families. That's it. Helping your boss get promotion? No. Hitting your quarterly numbers? Absolutely not. Imagine someone lying on their deathbed saying, "But the profit I created for others." That's not going to happen. At least I hope it doesn't happen. Society has completely, and I mean completely, lost sight of the only thing on earth that matters, and that is building a better future for our little ones. So parents, show yourself some compassion, give yourself some empathy, forgive yourself for fighting depression and not showing up the way that you always want to. We walked into a room that was on fire and we were expected to put it out with a bottle of water. Parenting today is quite literally a public health crisis, so parents, give yourself a break. Making change starts with awareness. And a single drop of water might not get the job done, but I guarantee you they'll notice a flood. The path we've been on for the past 10 years or so is literally killing us. And I think we owe it to ourselves to pump the brakes a bit and take back control of the future that we want to build for our kids. In today's episode, we're going to go into the 4 sections of the Parents Under Pressure document, diving into some of their findings, hitting on a few of the stats, but most importantly, talking about what we can do to improve parenting in America, not just for us, but for society at large. Thanks for being here for this episode of Courtside Forever, because as parents, we've got the best seats in the house. Let's enjoy them. Let's start with the current state of parental stress and well-being. When Ray was about 18 months old, I got a new boss at work. I was lucky to have had this incredible team where we all got along and everyone was really supportive of me being a dad. But then things changed. I remember initially my new boss, it was nice. And we even went out to dinner with my family. And honestly, I was really excited for our partnership and to work with this person. And then I wasn't. He'd asked me to come to San Francisco for this conference, which I was fine with. I love San Francisco. But I was really clear that my wife was out of town, so I wouldn't be able to attend all the festivities and stay for the entire time. Now, initially, he was fine with it, but the day after the conference, he called me and said, sometimes we all have to make sacrifices for our work, and I'm concerned that you're unable to do that. Listen, I was livid. This was just one incident of many over the course of a few months, and needless to say, I got out of there as soon as possible because working for someone who had zero sympathy for parenting responsibilities was not a world that I could live in. That story is mild in compared to what I've seen. I've seen promotions get denied because they dare to put their family first. I've seen women's careers stall after finding out that they're pregnant. Ultimately, parental stress has reached a breaking point as too many employers are unable to see the value in creating work environments that honor the family. The constant juggling act between the career, caregiving, and the societal expectations is pushing parents to their limits and is leading to a less productive and more stressed and seriously unhappy people in the workplace. It drives me insane because this stuff is so obvious. Invest in your people and they're going to invest in you. It's that simple. Everyone talks about how work ethic has plummeted in recent years. And yeah, because for far too many, the trade-off between hard work and an improved life, it just isn't there. 41% of parents say that most days they are so stressed that they can't function. And 48% say their stress is completely overwhelming compared to other adults. That boss I mentioned earlier wasn't a parent. But years later, I chuckled when I saw he became a dad, thinking about how he treated me as one. I've also worked for people who were parents who were nightmares to deal with, so it's certainly not as easy as promote more parents. But almost half of all parents are so stressed with work and life and all the things that they literally can't function. I don't care what your company does. If your people can't function, they're not creating great work. So if you think your company is already putting out a great product, imagine what you can do if you improve these metrics. Parental stress isn't just a personal issue, it's a societal crisis. We need to take steps to better support parents at every level, and that's from policy changes to community support. If you're listening and you're a parent, I would bet my cabinet full of Sour Patch Kids that you are part of the 41 to 48% of parents who are completely stressed over everything. Work demands are insane. Rents and mortgages are out of control. Childcare costs, oh my goodness, do not get me started. They are borderline criminal. The American dream for American families is an American nightmare. But hey, look at the profits, right? I know it's not going to be easy, but there is no way this is how life was meant to be, right? Now let's move to the relationship between parental stress and mental health. Most of the time when we talk about parents and mental health, we talk about moms and postpartum depression, and rightfully so. Moms deserve every bit of support, especially in the aftermath of giving birth or welcoming a new family member. But after I became a dad for the second time, I felt this fog that I definitely couldn't explain at the time. It was like the wheels were spinning, but I couldn't get anywhere. I struggled to connect with my daughter, and as ridiculous as it sounds, I felt like she hated me. Work was really difficult to navigate at the time, and I just felt like I couldn't get anywhere. It wasn't until years later that I heard someone mention paternal postpartum depression, and after reading about it, I realized this was likely what I struggled with. Down the line, I'm going to do an entire episode about this, but my experience with anxiety showed me that I need to create a healthy relationship with my mental health, something I'm still working on, quite frankly. The stress of parenting is more than just a temporary feeling. For many, it manifests into severe mental health conditions that can have devastating consequences. When our mental health is off, everything is off. When Steph Curry or Sabrina Ionescu aren't hitting shots, their teams struggle. The same goes for our families. When parents are unable to show up either physically or mentally, cracks can appear in ways that show up for years. An inability to focus may show up at work, leading to missed promotions. Our anxiety may cause us to skip play dates or even meal plan for our families. The stress doesn't just start when the baby arrives. Anxiety can kick in the second you find out that the baby is on the way. According to the Parents Under Pressure PDF, women generally have a higher prevalence of mental health conditions than men. And for moms, the leading cause of pregnancy-related deaths is mental health conditions, and that's at 22.7%, including suicides and overdose and poisoning related to substance use disorders. We need to pause on that for a minute because that statistic is frightening. The reasons can vary, but they include previous mental health conditions, the experience of racism and discrimination, poor social support, and extreme or traumatic stress. And it's not just moms who struggle with perinatal mental health struggles, dads can too. 8 to 14% of men between the first trimester of their partner's pregnancy and the end of their first year postpartum struggle with depression. Also, a 23-year study found that fathers living in the home had increasing depressive symptoms during their children's first 5 years of life. This is where we need to ask ourselves as a society, are we built to support parents? Are we built to actually support and lift up parents? We are exhausted. It's not just as simple as we just need to toughen up. That's not it. Parental mental health is in a bad place. And if you're struggling, I promise you, you are not alone. We need to prioritize mental health support for parents, especially during the critical perinatal period, to prevent tragic outcomes and support family stability. Like I mentioned earlier, if mom and dad are struggling, everybody struggles. We can try to mask it as much as we can, but sooner or later, that trash can is going to overflow. It's inevitable. Parents need a rest, and I know it's tough to come by, but finding little ways to treat ourselves well is really the most selfless thing that we can do for others. Now let's touch on the impact of parental mental health. When my wife and I were getting married, we attended this marriage workshop that was put on by our friend's parents. This was well over a decade ago and well before kids, but we knew it was important to start a marriage off on the right foot. While there, I learned about family of origin and how our parents and families in general play a huge role in who we're going to become. It doesn't mean you're going to turn out exactly like your parents, but I bet you've heard the term, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Well, it's a saying for a reason. Now, I had a great childhood, so I'm not thinking any of this is going to impact me, at all. Sure, my dad wasn't around, but I'd moved past that. I was living a great life. Then all of a sudden, seemingly out of nowhere, we started talking about grandparents, relatives, and other people we saw growing up. And as I listened to testimonies from people talking about the abuse they witnessed as kids and the trauma they had taken in, I'm looking at people who are struggling to communicate in their marriages, many because they simply didn't know how to, and how almost all of their problems decades later could stem from the behaviors that were modeled to them when they were kids. I didn't know that was a thing. Parental mental health conditions can disrupt the emotional and cognitive development of children with long-term consequences for families and society. I know there's a lot of folks who would do anything for their kids. I've heard moms say they'd fight a bear for their kids. I've heard dads say they'd take a bullet. All that's fine and dandy, but would you go to therapy for your kids? Would you apologize to your kids? Would you focus on yourself for your kids? Both maternal and paternal mental health conditions are shown to impact the well-being of kids. That's both on the negative and the positive aspects of mental health. Kids pick up on what they see, and if you've been a parent for any amount of time, you've seen this, which is in part why it's so crucial for us to understand how our mental health impacts our kids. Children of parents with mental health conditions may face heightened risks, including for symptoms of depression and anxiety, and for earlier onset, recurrence, and prolonged functional impairment from mental health conditions. That's a lot of words to say that if our mental health is poor, there's a good chance our kids will be too. Parents Under Pressure says the mental health conditions of parents can pose greater risk for children when combined with additional risk factors like poverty, exposure to violence, and marital conflict, but they can be mitigated by protective factors like social support networks and positive parenting behaviors as well. Addressing parental mental health is essential for creating a stable, supportive environment for kids. The ripple effects of poor mental health extend far beyond the parent and can shape the future of your entire family way down the line. That's a lot of pressure when you think about it, and I get it. If focusing on your mental health was so easy, don't you think that all of us would do it? I'm not going to be that idiot that says, parents, you just need a spa day. Listen, if you've got the means to, do it. I love a good spa day. But there's some parents who view a bathroom break as their entire rest for the day. It can be hard to get away. Whatever the answer is for you, I'd recommend that you search for it because the data is clear. Kids need to see healthy and thriving parents if they are going to have the best chances to thrive themselves down the line. So far, a lot of the conversation has been framed around parents, rightfully so, but the work we put into ourselves today will have generational effects on our families. So the work that we do on our mental health isn't only for us, but it's for the little ones we love. Last but not least, let's talk about the actions we can take. We can talk about this all we want. We can meet up for play dates, complain about every aspect of parenting that wears us down. We can complain about our bosses, HR policies, insane and archaic laws on the books, and the insane amount of apps that we need to have for our kids. I can't read all these emails. The well-being of parents and caregivers is a critical and underappreciated public health priority. The Parents Under Pressure doc jumps into a number of ways that we collectively can improve life for parents. It touches on what national, territorial, state, local, and tribal governments can do, talks about what employers can do, talks about what communities and community organizations and schools can do, what health and social service systems and professionals can do, and also what researchers can do. And maybe down the line, we can study each of these in depth. And in fact, you really don't even need me for it because you can do them all right now. It's available for you. But let's talk about a few things that you and I can do today to start making an impact on parenting. Number one, we can offer practical support, help with household chores, childcare responsibilities, or even running errands. Look for ways to support parents and caregivers in your life so they can take breaks and attend appointments and take care of themselves, whatever that might look like for them. Also, we got to connect with parents and caregivers in your life on a regular basis. Find opportunities to include parents and caregivers in your routine by scheduling weekly walks, making a plan to check in on them. You have no idea the power of a simple text, what that can do for people, what that can do for parents. Also, learn about mental health challenges that parents and caregivers can face. Now, recognize the mental health challenges and even some of the warning signs of distress in parents and caregivers, which could include anxiousness, fatigue, anger, loneliness, and isolation, reduced productivity at work, and changes in sleeping and eating patterns. You know your people, and if you see something, say something. Check in on your people to make sure that they know that you are there for them. Also, let's talk about what parents and caregivers can do. Number one, remember that caring for yourself is a key part of how you care for your family. Make sure you exercise, get some sleep, eat well, practice mindfulness, meditate, and sign up for recreational activities that bring you joy. Might I suggest some pickleball, perhaps? Not too bad. Whatever you do it for yourself. Also, nurture connections with other parents and caregivers. Seek out or create relationships with parents. The phrase, "it takes a village," exists for a reason. Parents need each other to make it through these seasons. Don't isolate yourself from people. Also, let some people in around you. Also, explore opportunities to secure comprehensive insurance coverage for yourself and for your family. Believe it or not, proper health insurance has a positive impact on overall health and mental health related outcomes. Double check your coverage and see what kind of benefits you have. Between in-person and online therapy, you might actually be surprised what's included in your plan. Also, empower yourself with information about mental health care. Educate yourself with credible resources about mental health. And to be clear, I can't stress the word credible enough. Even me, I don't have a clinical degree. I'm not a therapist. I'm just some dude with a podcast. And for better or for worse, there's a lot of dudes with podcasts. There are books and therapists on social media. Educate yourself on the importance of mental health and ensuring that you are set up right. Lastly, recognize how mental health challenges manifest and seek help when you need it. Mental health is just as important as physical health. I know folks have no shame spending all their time in the gym, and I love it. On that note, don't feel even remotely embarrassed about spending time in therapy, taking meds, and so on and so on. If you feel bad and you're not getting better, you need and deserve additional care. Don't be afraid to ask for support from peers, from family members, mental health providers, or any medical professionals. All in all, supporting parents isn't just about providing resources. It's about creating a culture that values the work of caregivers and acknowledges the sacrifices that parents make on a daily basis. You owe it to yourself to be good to yourself. And if you're struggling to put in that work for you, then do it for them. Thanks for tuning in to Courtside Forever, where our goal is to ensure that parents enjoy the best seats in the house. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend or two, and feel free to reach out with any comments or questions. Last but not least, if this podcast is certainly not sponsored by the Surgeon General, but to read the Parents Under Pressure PDF document and a number of different great resources, head over to surgeongeneral.gov/parents, and you can download the doc, read it for yourself, share it, and really dive into it. I'm your host, Ryan Rucker, and I appreciate you being here. Take care.